Just trying to get the light so that I could see the text. All right, this next piece is a super short story, like 800 words, and it moves really quickly. There's a bunch of characters get introduced really quickly, and I think that works when it comes to reading it on the page, but when you're listening, it's a different skill set. So I made pictures so you guys can keep track of the characters really quickly. In the back, trust me, they're very accurate. Right. It starts with a grandma. The name of the story is Tubes of Lipstick. My grandmother was so good at killing people that they sent her to Vietnam only a week after it started. More recently, she could drive at the BFW Hall in Campbell, where she emptied martini glasses and told war stories with her friends. She did that every Saturday until her dad died from too much whiskey. When the orderlies wheeled great-granddad into the hospital morgue, he was 7.5 feet tall. In high school, they wanted him to play basketball, but he couldn't make his hands do what he wanted, and with his arms and legs hanging from his body, he looked like a pile of rubber bands stretching back and forth across the gym. He was the longest-lived, very tall man in history, 102 at the moment of expiration. Usually, people like him die young, like the grocery clerk from Wisconsin who was 8 feet tall, who lived mostly before 1920. He filled entire sheds and outhouses with the size of his body. And when he wasn't doing that, every part of him was dying as fast as it could, for almost 24 years. They say he could pull birds from the sky, but if you ask me, that didn't make up for what it did to his body. All it did, in the end, was make him famous enough to have his picture over a caption in a library book I found by running my hand along the shelves, so it would look like I wasn't only there because the library was the one place I knew I could find the librarian. I didn't learn her name long enough to remember, but a little later, while we were drinking coffee, and before she left because of my ideas about her looks and my feelings and etc., she told me that she always hated the farm where she grew up. She said they planted designer seeds, used motorcycles to herd cattle, all these modern things, and that what she really wanted was windmills and blue dresses and dinner bells. And it's funny, because my uncle used to ride a motorcycle, and for him, it was just the opposite. For him, it was the only way he could make the outdoors feel worthwhile. One time, he was riding to his job as a computer technician, and his bike hit something so small he couldn't remember seeing it, and his tires exploded beneath him. It took him more than a year to die from that, and until then, he spent his time rolling around in a wheelchair and learning to read journal articles on neurology, and then later lying on an adjustable bed with no food in his stomach, because of the way that his stomach connected to his small intestine, and then to his large intestine, and then to his colon and anus, and eventually to the adult diapers that his mother would have to empty and wash and replace. And she herself with tear ducts connected via some complex and gorgeous system to the middle places in her chest where we're pretty sure emotion lives. So that with enough thought, you can see that the food he refused to eat was connected physically to the balled up tissues that collected like styrofoam on her bed at night and during the day. My uncle died of a lot of things, but his refusal to eat was maybe the most willful part of it. I never got upset, even though he was the only relative I had that treated me like nothing was wrong with me. Sometimes, lately, I sit around and watch a movie he would have liked, and I want to talk about the librarian and how she pretends she doesn't see me, even though when we first met at our friend's party, we smoked drugs in the laundry room and then laughed as though we could clean the air between us with just our happiness. Thinking about her, I know I would be better off with my uncle next to me so that I could talk about her out loud, about how she's got a beautiful face, and how when I say it's beautiful, I know that's just a word that describes things I only barely notice, like how her cheekbones draw her skin flat, or the brown and black striations in her eyes, or how her skin looks like it could be shifted by the moving air, or how if you get close enough, you see freckles across her face barely darker than the skin around them. And if you get closer, you can see fine hairs, and if you get closer, there are ridges and bumps, and then closer, you see tiny holes, and then closer, and eventually, you get down so far that you see all these living cells locked together and buzzing, humming, so that their outlines overlap, and they're touching one another, and they become hard to see on their own, and alive, and changing, and living, with no idea of what they're doing to me from so far away, of the way that they terrify me with the size of their smallness.